Chapter 42 of the Old Curiosity Shop. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recorded by Mill Nicholson. The Old Curiosity Shop by Charles Dickens. Chapter 42. It behoves us to leave Kit for a while, thoughtful and expectant, and to follow the fortunes of little Nell, resuming the thread of the narrative at the point where it was left some chapters back. In one of those wanderings in the evening time, when, following the two sisters at a humble distance, she felt, in her sympathy with them and her recognition in their trials, of something akin to her own loneliness of spirit, a comfort and consolation which made such moments a time of deep delight, though the softened pleasures they yielded was of that kind which lives and dies in tears. In one of those wanderings at the quiet hour of twilight, when sky and earth and air and rippling water and sound of distant bells claimed kindred with the emotions of the solitary child, and inspired her with soothing thoughts, but not of a child's world, or its easy joys. In one of those rambles, which had now become her only pleasure or relief from care, light had faded into darkness, and evening deepened into night, and still the young creature lingered in the gloom, feeling a companionship in nature so serene and still, when noise of tongues and glare of garish lights would have been solitude indeed. The sisters had gone home, and she was alone. She raised her eyes to the bright stars, looking down so mildly from the wide worlds of air, and gazing on them found new stars burst upon her view, and more beyond again, until the whole great expanse sparkled with shining spheres, rising higher and higher in immeasurable space, eternal in their numbers as in changeless and incorruptible existence. She bent over the calm river, and saw them shining in the same majestic order as when the dove beheld them gleaming through the swollen waters upon the mountain tops down far below, and dead mankind 1,000,000 fathoms deep. The child sat silently beneath a tree, hushed in her very breath by the stillness of the night and all its attendant wonders. The time and place awoke reflection, and she thought with a quiet hope, less hope perhaps than resignation, on the past and present and what was yet before her. Between the old man and herself there had come a gradual separation, harder to bear than any former sorrow. Every evening, and often in the daytime too, he was absent alone, and although she well knew where he went and why, too well from the constant drain upon her scanty purse and from his haggard looks, he evaded all inquiry, maintained a strict reserve, and even shunned her presence. She sat meditating sorrowfully upon this change, and mingling it, as it were, with everything about her, when the distant church clock bell struck 9. Rising at the sound, she retraced her steps and turned thoughtfully towards the town. She had gained a little wooden bridge, which, thrown across the stream, led into a meadow in her way, when she came suddenly upon a ruddy light, and looking forward more attentively, discerned that it proceeded from what appeared to be an encampment of gipsies, who had made a fire in one corner at no great distance from the path, and were sitting or lying round it. As she was too poor to have any fear of them, she did not alter her course, which indeed she could not have done without going a long way round, but quickened her pace a little and kept straight on. A movement of timid curiosity impelled her, when she approached the spot, to glance towards the fire. There was a form between it and her, the outline strongly developed against the light, which caused her to stop abruptly. Then, as if she had reasoned with herself and were assured that it could not be, or had satisfied herself that it was not that of the person she had supposed, she went on again. But at that instant the conversation, whatever it was, which had been carrying on near this fire, was resumed, and the tones of the voice that spoke, she could not distinguish the words, sounded as familiar to her as her own. She turned and looked back. The person had been seated before, but was now in a standing posture, and leaning forward on a stick on which he rested both hands. The attitude was no less familiar to her than the tone of voice had been. It was her grandfather. Her first impulse was to call to him, her next to wonder who his associates could be, and for what purpose they were together. Some vague apprehension succeeded, and, yielding to the strong inclination it awakened, she drew nearer to the place, not advancing across the open field, however, but creeping towards it by the hedge. In this way she advanced within a few feet of the fire, and standing among a few young trees, could both see and hear without much danger of being observed. There were no women or children, as she had seen in other gipsy camps they had passed in their wayfaring, and but one gipsy, a tall athletic man, who stood with his arms folded, leaning against a tree at a little distance off, looking now at the fire, and now, under his black eyelashes, at three other men who were there, with a watchful but half-concealed interest in their conversation. Of these her grandfather was one. The others she recognized as the first card-players at the public house on the eventful night of the storm, the man whom they had called Isaac List, and his gruff companion. One of the low arched gipsy tents, common to that people, was pitched hard by, but it either was, or appeared to be, empty. "Well, are you going?" said the stout man, looking up from the ground, where he was lying at his ease, into her grandfather's face. "You were in a mighty hurry a minute ago. Go if you like. You're your own master, I hope." "Don't vex him," returned Isaac List, who was squatting like a frog on the other side of the fire, and had so screwed himself up that he seemed to be squinting all over. "He didn't mean any offence."
"You keep me poor, and plunder me, and make a sport and jest of me besides," said the old man, turning from one to the other. "Ye'll drive me mad among ye." The utter irresolution and feebleness of the grey-haired child, contrasted with the keen and cunning looks of those in whose hands he was, smote upon the little listener's heart. But she constrained herself to attend to all that passed, and to note each look and word.
"Confound you! What do you mean?"
said the stout man, rising a little and supporting himself on his elbow.
"Keep you poor? You'd keep us poor if you could, wouldn't you? That's the way with you whining, puny, pitiful players. When you lose, you're martyrs. But I don't find that when you win. You look upon the other losers in that light. As to plunder," cried the fellow, raising his voice, "Damme! What do you mean by such ungentlemanly language as plunder, eh?"
The speaker laid himself down again at full length, and gave one or two short angry kicks, as if in further expression of his unbounded indignation. It was quite plain that he acted the bully, and his friend the peacemaker, for some particular purpose, or rather it would have been to any one but the weak old man, for they exchanged glances quite openly, both with each other and with the gipsy, who grinned his approval of the jest until his white teeth shone again. The old man stood helplessly among them for a little time, and then said, turning to his assailant, "You yourself were speaking of plunder just now, you know. Don't be so violent with me. You were you not?"
"Not of plundering among present company. Honour among gentlemen, sir," returned the other, who seemed to have been very near giving an awkward termination to the sentence.
"Don't be hard about him, Jowl,"
said Isaac List.
"He's very sorry for giving offence. There, go on with what you're saying. Go on."
"I'm a jolly old tender-hearted lamb, I am," cried Jowl, "to be sitting here at my time of life giving advice, when I know it won't be taken, and that I shall get nothing but abuse for my pains. But that's the way I've gone through life. Experience has never put a chill upon my warm-heartedness."
"I tell you he's very sorry, don't I?" remonstrated Isaac List, "and that he wishes you'd go on."
"Does he wish it?"
said the other. "Aye," groaned the old man, sitting down, and rocking himself to and fro. "Go on, go on. It's in vain to fight with it. I can't do it. Go on."
"I go on then," said Jowl, "where I left off when you got up so quick. If you're persuaded that it's time for luck to turn, as it certainly is, and find that you haven't means enough to try it, and that's where it is, for you know yourself that you never have the funds to keep on long enough at a sitting, help yourself to what seems put in your way on purpose. Borrow it, I say, and when you're able, pay it back again."
"Certainly."
Isaac List struck in.
'If this good